Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Nord Not Work. We're playing a new game today called Banished. Banished is a game that I have been waiting years to see. Not necessarily this game in particular, but a game like it. I've always enjoyed SimCity style games, but I've always wanted one that had more of a medieval theme to it. I've played others in the past, but they always tend to focus more on what kind of army can you build, repelling invaders, building city walls. And while that can be fun, it's not really what I wanted. I wanted just straight city management. And that's what Banished gives us, with just beautiful detail. So, we're going to get into it. My goal for this series is hopefully to go 1 year per episode. So we're not going to rush anything. We are, of course, going to be trying to get some basic food and resource production going in the first year. Just because if you kind of play around with that, all of your citizens will starve to death. And we don't want that. So without further ado, let's begin a new game. So, the game selection begins. We get to pick a town name, terrain type, size, climate, normal starting things. So let's see, you can either type in your own name, or I like doing the auto-generate to see Sawyer Townsbury. Yeah, we'll go with that one. So, terrain type, we have valleys or mountains. I've played valleys, let's try mountains. I haven't seen that one yet. Terrain size, large, because I don't want to be playing on a post-it. Climate, you have mild, fair, and harsh. I'd rather not do harsh. It's hard enough keeping these little guys alive in fair weather. So, we'll leave that there. Now we have disasters. You can turn on or off. We're going to leave it on for now. I think it's a little cheaty being able to turn off if you get hit with a blight or if, a tornado comes through. So we'll leave that on. And then starting conditions, there's 3 different things you can choose from: hard, medium, and easy. So easy is lots of families, large amount of clothing, food, firewood, materials. Pretty much already got homes set up. So it's kind of like if you want to just jump into the game and figure out how to use it. That sounds boring. Hard, you start with 4 families, you get a tiny bit of clothing, food, and firewood, but you don't get any seeds for farming. That sounds like suicide. And as much fun as it is to watch me fail, I'd rather not, especially starting with the mountain terrain type. So we'll do medium. Medium game gives you 5 families, so 10 adults, and I think like 11 or 12 kids. Clothing, food, firewood, and tools, but you don't get a ton of any of that. You do get a barn to start off with, which is nice. The hard mode, I think you just get like a cart. Then you get a little bit of seeds, but you don't get a ton. So you kind of got to manage that initially. So, looks like a good setup. So I welcome you to Sawyer Townsbury. Now you can see the detail that they put into this is pretty impressive. It's a far cry from the original SimCity games, or even some of the older games like Pharaoh or Crusader, which were set in more of an ancient or medieval time. So you could get a little bit of detail, but every house was kind of cookie cutter. You didn't get a lot of individuality to it. This one, you can see different types of thatching for the roofs. The planks are actually different on just about every house, so it gives it a nice look. And once we get a immediate or larger size town going, it should look pretty cool. So, now one thing I've noticed is if you look at the little loading, some of these little messages that pop up are pretty funny. So first things first, let's pause before everybody starves to death. And we will zoom out. Now, most of this game can pretty much be controlled with just the mouse. The mouse wheel will zoom you in and out. Hitting the edges of the border will zip you around. Clicking, of course, will select different items. If you click the mouse wheel and rotate the camera, you can actually move around like that. The only things that you really need the keyboard for are when you're orienting your buildings. The right key and the T key will flip the building left or right. So, let's get into it. So you can see we've got a little stockpile here. We've got 200 firewood, 60 stone, some iron to make some replacement tools, 120 logs. So we're already at 67% full, and that's next to nothing. So we're going to need a much bigger stockpile pretty early on. In the barn, this is where we keep our coats, our tools, and our food. We've got 1,800 potatoes. Sounds like a lot? Nowhere near. We're going to need so much more food than this. So, while it's paused, let's go down and check out the different options for tools. So the first step, this little cog wheel here, gives you all of your different player management tools. So the first one just gives you a little bit of information about the town, tells you how many people need homes, how many people you actually have. Okay, we're only starting off with 8 kids, so it's a slightly smaller town than the last style that I played. It gives you the ambient temperature. I'm playing in Fahrenheit, being an American. Gives you the time of the year as well as the year itself. So when this clicks over to 2, hopefully I'll still have enough towns members to survive to bid you guys a good day and tell you to come back for the next episode. Hopefully. Tells you pretty much your stored resources at a glance, so you can kind of tell when you're getting low without having to actually go find your stockpile and click on it. The second one we need is the log of events. Now this is kind of good to have in the beginning, but I think a little bit later in the game we might want to turn that off, just because it'll show all of the deaths and births, and if we can get to a fairly good sized town, we'll have people being born and dying constantly, and that will get very annoying. The main point for having it on now is that as we run low on our resources, it will warn us so that we can start ordering people to gather up more. The map is the third thing we need. We'll stick that right over here. It always seems to start you right in the center of the map itself. So if you do something like you accidentally click on the map, where am I? Just click around the center and you should find yourself again. You can see from the overview, looks like we have a lake just south to us, bigger lake to the north. This is a large river, which it will be good for putting trading posts along. And then there's a couple of creeks. They look nice. You can put fishing areas on them, but you're not going to catch much. They're mostly just there as decorative features. The final little thing that we need is this one right here. This one's very important, assigning jobs. So this lets us quickly cycle between the idle townspeople and the ones who are working without having to go and find individual townsmen and click them over. And the game's pretty good at figuring out if you have 3 builders that you need, it will assign whoever's closest, so that way you're not dealing with, oh, my builder wandered way up here and he's needed down here now. It's going to take him forever to walk back. Now, what it'll do is, if he has another type of job he can do up here, it'll switch him over, and someone who's idle down here will now become a builder. So, very nice feature. I'm kind of disappointed other games haven't done that in the past. Now, for the rest of these buttons down here, this is going to be what we're playing with. First one is homes and housing. You have wooden, stone, and community building. We're going to do the community building to start off with. It's a little less resource intensive. Our guys won't be happy forever living there, but it'll at least get them through the first year or 2. Next is roads. This is where we go to pick dirt, stone roads, bridges, and tunnels. Storage areas are found here. We have extra barns, just like this guy. Piles, which we'll probably place another one here pretty early. Markets. Markets are storage areas that look nicer than barns, basically. That way, if we have barns down in the farming area and we get a large area up around here that's mostly housing, we don't have to worry about putting a barn right in the middle of a bunch of urban sprawl. We just put a market there. And then trading posts, this will allow us to get additional resources. So if we have way more wood than we need and we're kind of running low on iron and there's not a lot around, we can trade by placing one of these along a river source and getting it from there. Next up is the civic features. These are things like hospitals, schools, churches, wells, which we need water, because if a fire breaks out and there's not a well around, we're going to lose the whole town. After that's food production. This is going to be fairly essential early on. We're not going to do orchards or pastures because they take a while to pay off. I think in orchards you got to wait 2 to 3 years before you can even harvest your first crops. And that's going to mean we're going to starve to death if we try and start with an orchard. We'll probably start with hunting and gathering and then move up to farming and then go from there. After that we have resource productions. So this is where we get firewood. This is the Forester Lodge to cut down additional trees. Herbalists, once we start getting the hospitals up and running, we're going to need medicine. Blacksmith, tailor, tavern, places like that. These are going to be more later game. So don't even look at those right off the bat. And then this last one is kind of our direct commands. We can say harvest trees. So we could select an area of trees and they'll cut them down without even being foresters. Any laborers that we have will run over there and do it. That's how we collect stones. That's how we pick up this surface iron here. So this will come in handy early game, and then later game as we start tearing stuff down to expand, we're going to need to remember this is here. So for now, let's get started. We're going to tell them to build a boarding house. So we want to flip this around. You can see there's the little roadway icon, tells you where the front of the house is. So we want that facing an area that we can access it with a road. So let's move this over. Let's put it right up against this mountainside here. And they'll come over and clear out this stone. So that's one of the nice things. You don't have to tell them to clear the land before to let you place. You can just place, and then they're smart enough to figure out what needs to happen. So we'll do that. Let's run a little roadway along it. Roads will make your citizens move faster between items, so it's a good idea to have some basic roads. Even if you don't go for the high-end stone roads, you want at least some dirt ones to start off with. So we have that, and then let's build another pile here, and zoom up real quick, look around. Looks like we have some deer right in this area. That's all mountain passes. So yeah, it looks like we're going to be expanding across this little bit of riverway first, just because of the fact that I don't think these guys are going to be able to tunnel through this mountainside until a little bit later in the game. So let's tell them, let's go to that clearing tool. And we'll start with some tree harvesting. So let's clear out this area here. And get a couple of builders on the map. And let's unpause this and let them go. So what they do first is they walk up to the barn and they will start taking what they need from it. So they're all getting dressed, they're all picking up some tools, and they're going to go to work. Damn 3-year-old. Get a job. Now, your children will grow up, and they'll grow up fairly quickly. That's good. Your adults will also get older fairly quickly. That's not so good. One thing you have to really pay attention to, you need to make sure you have enough housing for the families to expand. This game will actually screw you in that your adults can get too old to breed, and then your whole town can actually die off simply because there's not enough children coming up behind them. So let's just, real quick while I'm thinking about it too, let's put a well in right on this little corner here. And let's pick up the pace. Let's go 5 times speed, so that way we can see what's happening. So you can see they're taking wood, they're taking stone, they're bringing it over here, and they're filling it up. So we just need a little bit more stone, and then there we go. Now they start building. So let's slow this down a little bit again. But you can see how much that took. Still got plenty of firewood, but we're just about out of everything else. So they'll continue bringing the wood over from that, but we want a little more regular wood clearing here. Speaking of clearings, got this nice little area up here. Let's plop down a forester's lodge. Now you can see there's this big circle around it. That's the area that they will clear trees in. Did I place that? I don't think I did. Oh yeah, I did. Yes? Nope. Nope. Okay. That did not place because the land is a little too hilly there. So let's try and take him a little more south, and let's flip him around. Let's put him on line there. And then one more time, run a bit of a road straight down to here and connect to there. So this will greatly speed up the foresters being able to get their wood back into the stockpile. So they're doing their thing. We got the builders should be wandering up as soon as they're around here. We're working away. Now, once the housing is completed, they will stock this with food and firewood. You're going to see it all disappear out of here. The game's going to freak out. It's going to tell us we're low on food, which we're low on backups, but we should start with enough to get us through the first winter. But we don't want to rely completely on those potatoes. Because, I don't know about you, but if I was living on a potato-only diet, not only would I go crazy, but I'd probably get pretty sick. We need some protein in our diet. So let's place right across from the forester's cabin a hunting cabin. This way they're using the same road. They're filling up, or they're drawing from the same area, but while one guy will be clearing out these trees for us, the other will be hunting this sweet, sweet venison. And once again, a little more speed. There's one of those alerts. You can see the firewood reserve is low. It's because they just moved it all into the house. So, one last thing I really need to get started early on is this guy right here, the woodcutter. We're going to place him, let's do it right here. It'll force them to clear out this little mess of iron and stone. It's also right next to our stockpile, so that way he has easy access to get more wood. Because winter comes on really quick in this game, and if we are out of firewood, we freeze to death. So there they go, clearing away. We're going to have a ton of iron to start with, which is nice. And will be nicer once we get a blacksmith. Let's let them do their thing. And I say, I'm really liking the music in the game. It's so much better than a lot of the 8-bit style music you would get with the older Sims. Doing their thing. So this is our boarding house. You can see we've got extra room for additional families, so when these guys start having kids, they're not all going to be out in the cold right away, but we're not going to want to keep them in here. They're not going to stay happy, and if they start getting sick, it'll run pretty rampant pretty quickly. Are they clearing this or not? So we can have, let's put a bunch more guys in the builders. And for the couple of laborers we got left, let's tell them to cut down, let's tell them to cut down these trees, because they're just kind of going to be on our way down here. No, not everyone. Okay. Oh, that'll at least get us the wood. They're pretty good about if your little Sims start getting idle, they'll start looking for things to do. So even though most of these guys are registered as builders now, they didn't have enough wood to work on their projects, so that's why they all kind of jumped in and helped clear out those trees. Did I get all of them, or did I miss a couple? I think I missed a couple. So let's harvest those as well, guys. Now, one nice thing about the Forester, which is why we want to get them up and running early, they not only will cut trees like the command does, they'll also replant them. So that way, we don't have to worry about completely deforesting an area. They'll kind of build it back up while they go. One last food production thing we're going to do before the winter hits is the Gatherer's Hut. The Gatherer's Hut is pretty much just like the hunting cabin in that it searches an area for anything it can harvest. Let's move them a little bit further out. Let's take them. Let's go. You know what? Let's wrap it that way. Place it there. They look for mushrooms and herbs, so they'll get us some root vegetables, they'll get us some additional food source. They're not continuous, they're not going to give us a ton of food, but they'll give us a more varied diet. Hopefully they'll keep us a little healthy. So it looks like we had a couple of kids born in the summer, so this is part of the reason a boarding house is good to have to start with. There's room for them all. Now that we have a bunch of newborns, you can see it's quite a bit more full now. So I'm kind of happy that we're getting a good amount of stone to start off with. Even building the wooden houses, you don't need a ton of stone for them, but you do need it for some foundations. So what do we have? We got and Mayan has just become an adult, so we have 4 laborers now. So let's set them to picking up some stones from this area. And let's get this area cleared out too. And we are getting a lot of iron. We're ready to set up a trading post pretty quickly, I think. So we're in early autumn. We still haven't, because we've been waiting on stone, that's why. So this should be good. This should get our hunting cabin, our forester's cabin, and our gatherer's hut all running about the same time. And woodcutter's almost there too. Now I think once we get to some of the more advanced resource production, quarry will get us stone without having to pick it up like that, but we're nowhere near that level yet, so... Okay, so now you see there's these question marks. Let's pause this for a second. So these question marks indicate that there's work to be done, but no one to do it. So, when you see these start popping up, you want to come back over to here. So we've got too many builders now. So let's knock them down. And down here you see how many you could potentially have versus how many are actually working. So let's make 3 foresters. Let's do 3 hunters. And gatherer's not ready yet, but they will be in a minute. So let's keep playing. So our woodcutter's waiting to be built. Let's actually just move one into there now. You don't need a lot of woodcutters to keep everybody stocked, but you need at least one. So that's the one that they assigned. That's why he's got the little question mark. So now it looked for him, he found the wood, and he runs over and he starts gathering it for us. So this is where I was saying you can order them to cut, you can order them to plant, or they can do both. Same with the hunting cabin, you can click to turn off hunting. Now I haven't figured out yet if they can truly overhunt an area. That would be interesting and a real problem for us, because I don't know how exactly the deer populations around here are for breeding, but yeah. So let's close that down. Let's check out the barn. So you can see we've got some leather coming in. Should have some venison in the boarding house. Yep, a little bit of venison. See how few potatoes we have left though? So we definitely need to get our food production up pretty quick. We are in early winter now. That's more firewood coming in. Forester should be doing a pretty good job. So I think we're going to survive our first winter fairly easily. As long as we don't run out of food. We still don't have enough stone for that. So let's order a little more stone picked up. Let's grab some from there. And some from there. Yeah, why not? Let's grab all that too. So, quarry's going to be nice to get. I want to build the houses more out of stone than wood. The wooden houses, while faster to throw up, take more firewood to keep them warm during the winter. Stone houses are a little more airtight, so that will put a little less demand on the forest, because I don't want to clear cut this area. Because you can see, well, yeah, we've got some woodlands to work with. We don't have a ton. It's little isolated patches. We're in late winter, coming into early spring. It looks like we survived our first winter. And they're finally building the gatherer's hut. I see a bunch of deer down here. I'm wondering if I put another hunting cabin down here, how would that work as the town builds up? Will the deer leave? Would that be a waste? Might try it and find out. Now, let's run a few more roads just to get ready for our next episode. It's going to be farming. Sounds fun, doesn't it? But for now, let's pause it here. It's early spring, year 2. So we survived our first winter. We are happy. We are thriving. I wouldn't say we are prospering yet, but we're going to get there. Let's take a second to up some gatherers so we get a little more food production. Drop the builders because we don't need those yet. And let's save those two for next episode. So for now, I'm Nord Notwork. We are playing Banished, which I should mention, by the way. Banished is available on Steam. It's $20. It's a great buy. And if that's not enough to get you to buy it, maybe this is. This entire game was developed, produced, created by one man. He's been working on it for about 3 years now. He is the sole proprietor of this whole video game studio, and I would just love for people to support that. We've seen so many independent game developers kind of get pushed out over the last year or two by some of the bigger guys, and the fact that he made what's essentially a really good sim style, what Maxis should be putting out and isn't kind of game by himself, just deserves to be rewarded. So leave a like on the video if you like the video. Even if you didn't like the video, go check out Banished in the Steam store. It's definitely worth the buy. For now, this is Nord Notwork, and I will see you guys next time in the beautiful, idyllic town of Swoyerstonbury.